I will introduce Misha very briefly. Misha's full bio is in the agenda that was shared with you. As I said, she was a panelist for one of our earlier discussions earlier in the week, but she is no stranger to us here at CCGI. Misha is the executive director of the Barbados Chamber of Commerce and Industry, a role that she has held since June of 2019. Under her leadership, the Barbados Chamber has experienced significant organizational change and repositioning, enhancing its visibility and engagement within the business sector. Misha has been instrumental in implementing the Chamber's strategic mandate, ensuring that it effectively represents the diverse interests of its members. She holds a Bachelor's of Arts degree in English and Political Science and a Master's of Arts in Communication Studies from UWI Mona campus. Misha is also certified as a trainer in corporate governance board leadership by the International Finance Corporation, the Global Corporate Governance Forum. Misha, thank you so much. As a member of CCGI, I'm proud of you stepping up and helping us to be able to fill this gap at the moment. And I will ask you to introduce your panel and take over the session at this time.
Thank you, Kamala, and good afternoon, everyone. I really am so sorry that I was unable to join the discussion since this morning, but I had the opportunity of being online for the opening session on day one, and it has been truly a stimulating and engaging governance week thus far. And I'm sure we will be able to continue that trend with this panel discussion, focusing on people, improving the social impact. And we certainly have a diverse panel of experts who will share their perspective. But I'd like to just start off by saying, you know, the social impact revolution is what when I saw the topic last night, it reminded me of the social impact revolution that has been, people say it has been quietly gaining momentum, and experts say certainly it has the power to be very transformative in shifting the way organizations invest, how the strategies are developed, how investments are made, and how policies are penned. They say that really it's one that advances the vision of organizations doing well while doing good, or what they call the social good. And of course, it is argued that it's being pushed by the millennial generation, who are demanding greater social responsibilities from corporate entities. And these same millennials are also making sure that they are more investing in more social impact investments, and they themselves are advancing more social impact investments. So I'm really kind of buoyed and keyed up to hear from our panelists. We have with us Ian Forbes, and with your permission, Kamala, I'll introduce each of them, or do you prefer for me to introduce each person, allow them to present, and then move to the next introduction? Which is your preference?
Introduce all three of them and then begin with Ian. Okay. So what's the conversation?
Excellent. So we have as our first panelist, Ian Forbes, and he is the Chief Operating Officer for Angostura Limited. And Ian is the Executive Manager with responsibility for operations at the distillery. And in April 2019, he was appointed to act as CEO until December 2019. He was subsequently promoted to COO in January 2020 and later reappointed as the Chief Executive Officer in September 2020. Now, as COO, he manages the company's operations, inclusive of distillery and bottling. But I think interestingly is the fact that his career spans 35 years, and he has a robust portfolio in alcohol beverages, the sector, embracing manufacturing operations, process management, plant design, quality assurance, project and business management. Now, the extensive profile is in the bio, but I think I would like to just emphasize that Ian has been asked to speak about from the interest of sustainability and impact on people. What drove you, Ian, to make several of the transformation initiatives that you drove at Angostura? And what are some of the government practices that helped or hindered you in that respect? So over to you, Ian. We look forward to hearing your perspectives.
It also introduced Sadiya and then Janice, and then we'll come.
Correct. You did say that. Sadiya Yahya, she's a business development manager at HRTM Consulting in Guyana. And she has completed a bachelor's degree in international relations, also holds a diploma in youth development and a certificate in project management, and is currently pursuing a master's in project management. It is her belief that international relations is what is known as the jack of all trades degree, and she has definitely lived up to that. She is the incoming vice curator for the Global Shapers community in Georgetown Hub, and has participated in the Harvard Model United Nations and the Girls Assemble National Assembly in 2022. She's a former outstanding youth parliamentarian, and she has worked at Pegasus Hotel, Red Entertainment, and her work does not stop there because she strongly believes in giving back to her community. And she has worked in the United States Agency for International Development, USAID funded community development projects, as well as a youth empowerment and development exchange program with the School of the Nations and the Nancy Campbell Academy. Our third panelist, Janice Learmond, Criqui. Janice, please, I am going to crave your indulgence to ask you to assist me. I joined late. Please help me with the pronunciation so that I do not do you any injustice on that one.
Right. My name is Janice Learmond Criqui. And
Thank you very
Learmond
much.
Criqui is one name, not two.
Okay. And I'm thankful that I have permission to just refer to you as Janice. So Janice brings to the table 20 years of experience in the public sector, working with the telecommunications and energy companies before transitioning to the private sector. She is a multi-talented professional renowned for her expertise as a corporate trainer in the soft skills and computer software, a Microsoft Access database developer and an administrator with responsibilities spanning HR, IT, and security. Janice is also a corporate secretary, certified professional coach, a columnist, and she's passionately dedicated to empowering individuals to reach their full potential. Her career has focused on cultivating skills, fostering growth, and facilitating transformative learning exercises. Janice also has a commitment to personal growth, which has led her to become a certified professional coach. And she uses that experience to be empowering professionals through one-on-one coaching with an empathic, insightful, and action-oriented approach. She further contributes to the discourse on self-improvement as a respected columnist, sharing insights on personal development, leadership, workplace dynamics in reputable publications. So I'm going to go back to Ian. Mm-hmm. And Ian, I had already introduced the kind of focus that you'll bring to this panel discussion. So over to you.
Thank you very much, Misha. Thank you very much to CCGI, and thank you very much for inviting me to participate in this panel. So my perspective is coming from the corporate environment, and that perspective can be kind of broad when you consider the issue of social impact. So I will start a little bit broadly to just give you an idea of where our organization stands, how it manifests itself in terms of its social impact. And in the conversation and in the introduction, I'll bring in some aspects of sustainability in particular. So I like to, start with definitions. So in the context of addressing this topic, for me, and from our perspective, we want to define social impact as referring to positive or negative effects on society resulting from actions, policies, or projects. An example of positive impact would be, for instance, where you have job creation, improve access to education, healthcare, reduce crime rates, environmental conservation efforts, and cultural preservation initiatives. On the issue of environmental conservation efforts and cultural preservation initiatives, we'll see a little bit more about that later on in the presentation. Social impact, if we look at our organization, Angostura, we are viewing it from the perspective in the organizational context of referring to an organization, the effect that an organization has on the well-being of the community and society at large. This goes beyond just corporate social responsibility programs and charitable donations, in our opinion. And it's about integrating social value into the core of business operations and culture. In that context, for Angostura, we want to focus in our presentation on what does that look like. So using Angostura as an example, it's about creating an inclusive workplace environment. It's about promoting employee well-being. It's about encouraging community engagement. It's about supporting lifelong learning. It's about sustainable business practices. And we know that there's a significant climate focus on this CCGI conference, and I'll have a lot to say on that. And it's about building a culture of empathy and respect. So in terms of creating an inclusive work environment for Angostura, the first step we see is in in terms of improving social impact, is in creating an inclusive workplace. Diversity and inclusion for us is more than a buzzword. We think that it's important in terms of an organization's strategy, as when people from diverse backgrounds come together, they bring unique perspectives that drive better decision-making. So we view Angostura as reflecting Trinidad and Tobago, whereby the full diversity of the country is visible and represented. We have a strong anti-harassment policy that supports the ability of persons to be themselves in the workplace, and we involve layers of management and information sharing and problem solving through monthly management meetings. In terms of promoting employee well-being, what does that look like at Angostura? Well, first of all, we come from the perspective that a healthy, happy workforce is more productive and engaged. So well-being programs that address mental health, physical health, and work-life balance we view as essential. Angostura also has a very active health HSSC department, health, safety, security, and environmental department that has been awarded in 2023 by AmCham, and prior to that in 2021. In addition to that, we have an employee assistance program, we have supportive leave policies, we have on-campus gym facilities, along with a personal trainer. So we view that as important. Now, beyond that, in the corporate social sphere, what we would do, for instance, in terms of on this particular point, just to give you an example, we would host an annual secondary entrance assessment exam prep mental health workshop for the children of staff members. And this is important because we've received positive feedback from both parents and children in terms of helping youngsters transition into secondary school. That's very, very important because that particular exam in Trinidad and Tobago brings a lot of stress on young children. So for our employees, that's one of the ways in which we would give back to them. We have also observed Mental Health Awareness Month in the month of May. The company organized 2 initiatives aiming to foster a deeper understanding of the importance of prioritizing mental well-being among staff. So that's one other aspect. And another aspect driving engagement is that we have something called the Java experience, where Java is the July-August vacation experience, where we would plan special events for the staff that run through the July-August period with the goal of nurturing camaraderie and boosting staff engagement. Moving beyond that into encouraging community engagement, we view it as important that employees engage with their communities. We believe it can amplify the organization's social impact. So for us, that would involve volunteer programs, community service days, and partnerships with local nonprofits that we believe can foster a sense of purpose and connection. So as a group, we do this in the wider community and as well as within our fence-line community. An example of what this would look like is Angostora's active participation in the annual intercoastal cleanup. This is an initiative held in September of every year. It's a testament to the company's dedication to environmental stewardship and community involvement in combating climate change. One of the things with this particular coastal cleanup is that we have a lot of employees participate and look forward to that particular engagement. Another example where we may not be directly involved would be where we have supported community groups that are focused on environmental cleanup campaigns. So for instance, we have what is called the Coral River Cleanup with Youths. This was an initiative that was designed to raise awareness among young participants about the critical importance of environmental stewardship, particularly in the context of combating climate change. So this was a component of our CSR program, which again is one component of which is preserving the environment. So beyond those aspects, we also support lifelong learning, and we invest in continuous education and development of our employees. We believe that this has a long-term benefit on the organization. In addition to that, we support the education of high-achieving students whose parents work with the organization, and this sometimes takes the form of grants towards university education and vacation internships. In terms of sustainable business practices, and we understand that the climate is a big focus of this particular CCGI Governance Week. Our perspective is that sustainability is a key element of social impact. So we view the fact that adopting environmentally friendly practices not only help the planet, but also demonstrates a commitment to future generations. So this ambition, I would say, is integrated into our society. And this is, I will say a little bit more about this because of the climate focus. So for Angostura, Angostura is an ISO certified company. So we are certified to ISO 9001, ISO 14001, ISO 17025, which is a laboratory accreditation certification, and also to Food Safety FSSC 22000. We are continuously audited on an annual basis. And in one of these audits, one of our auditors said, we don't find you doing enough for sustainability. Yes, you've done some stuff, okay. Yes, you're encouraging recycling. You try to use lightweighting techniques in your packaging. You try to reduce your packaging. You try to use paper that was grown from sustainable forests and so on in making your labels, but you need to do more. That challenge, which came from our BSI auditors, eventually started a series of things at Angostura, which started with our wastewater treatment plant. So having come through a project where we had rehabilitated our wastewater treatment plant, and we're one of a very small group of local manufacturers that actually have a wastewater treatment plant, we were encouraged to do more. And with that, we took this challenge to our board of directors, and with their wholehearted support, we started looking to see how we could do more significant things. That led us to look into projects in and around solar energy. We've also we are also in a very unique position in that our wastewater treatment plant produces biogas, which is biologically produced methane gas, which is high in energy. And we've also started looking at a project to take that biogas, clean it up, and possibly use it to generate electricity. We are looking at projects in and around energy conservation. We're looking at projects that speak to water stewardship. So that what has happened is that the conversation that started around sustainability and the challenge that was started by our BSI auditors has actually now woven itself into the organization strategy, so that it's now something that we have as an area of focus in order to create competitive advantage for us in our field. Now, that's very, very specific. That's it may even be quite resource intensive. Notwithstanding that, we view it as important in distinguishing us as rum makers and as the premier maker of bitters on the planet. We view it as absolutely necessary to our strategy. So what did this look like? This journey then led us to start investigating what are the licensing requirements for getting into some of these projects, solar and biogas as a source of energy generation for our plant. And with that, we had to then view, what are the policies in and around Trinidad and Tobago that would enable that to happen. I was inspired by a project that took place with the Airports Authority of Trinidad and Tobago, where they installed a small solar farm, and that project is meeting some of their requirements for electricity in running the airport. Inspired by that and seeing that they were able to do this, I then started pushing for a project, a similar project at Angostura. That led us to the Ministry of Public Utilities, where we had to apply for a special license. And we're going through all of those processes, and we're almost at the end of it, whereby we are considering making a significant investment towards a solar PV or photovoltaic project, something that we are very close to closing up, and more would be heard and said about that, hopefully in the near future. One of the other things too, because sustainability became such a critical aspect of our strategy, is that we also joined the Energy Chamber of Trinidad and Tobago. Now remember, we are a light manufacturing company. We are not an energy manufacturing company. So that being said, it's a little unusual for a light manufacturer to join the Energy Chamber of Trinidad and Tobago, but we joined there to network with other organizations from whom we could learn or from whom we could benefit in terms of driving sustainability projects. That included organizations such as the IDB Invest, UNDP, National Gas Company of Trinidad and Tobago, National Energy Corporation, Massey Gas Project, Products, and the Airports Authority, about whom I told you a short while ago. So that's the sustainability aspect. And just to close off my opening presentation, the other aspect that we think is important is building a culture of empathy and respect. So in that regard, at the core of improving our social impact is building a culture of empathy and respect that starts with our leaders. So our leaders are required to model these values and ensure they permeate throughout the organization. When employees feel valued and respected, we feel they are more likely to carry these values into their interactions with each other. Finally, on the issue of cultural preservation, I just want to mention that Angostura is a sort of a patron of the arts of Trinidad and Tobago. We have an extensive art collection, but in addition to that, we support projects that are culture focused, from supporting the Trinidad and Tobago Unified Calypso Association to partnering with the TSL Foundation to construct a steel pan manufacturing facility at the Russell Latapi High School, to sponsoring the Desperados Youth Steel Orchestra to cover their uniform, signage, and branding of their band's performance at National Junior Panorama, and supporting several unsponsored steel bands for panorama competitions, among other activities in and around our annual carnival celebration. So with that, I think I've said enough in terms of giving you our corporate perspective. What does our social impact look like? And in particular, what does it look like from a sustainable standpoint? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ian, for just kind of giving us those snapshots of Angostura in action in terms of its social impact initiatives. I'd like to just invite Sadiya now to share her perspective. Her bio has been quite impressive in terms of her extensive work in volunteerism. And therefore, we would like to hear from you, share your insights on this interesting topic. Over to you, Sadiya.
Thank you very much, Misha and Ian, for your presentation. So I would say my presentation takes a bit of a different point of view. My end goal in life has always been to give back to my community where I can. And I honestly sit here as a woman who I believe has found what I call a balance between my big girl corporate job and my social responsibilities, or as the corporate world knows it, corporate social responsibility. Yes, I function as a business development manager at HRTM Consulting in Guyana, but I also function as the income and vice curator for the Global Shapers Community Georgetown Hub. And since we are focusing on improving social impact, let me first give you an insight to what exactly the Global Shapers is. Then I will show you how we integrate this into the corporate world. So the Global Shapers Community is an initiative started by the World Economic Forum, and it was started in 2011 to empower young leaders to drive dialogue, action, and change. It is an international organization that is spread widely and has created such impactful work and, of course, a network. Because in order to be a part of the Global Shapers, you need to be a young leader in your own right. You have to show that you are willing to put the work in to make an impact. The community is an initiative, as previously said, of the World Economic Forum, and it is independent, neutral, non-political, and not-for-profit. The Georgetown Hub, in particular, was established shortly after the initial establishment from the World Economic Forum, and it became one of the vibrant nodes in this global network, committed to addressing local challenges through innovative solutions. So we have a soft saying in our hub. We have a saying, soften people, harden ideas. And I think that fits right into focusing on people and improving social impact, because ideas are great. We need to be hard on them, but without being soft on people, a lot of times those ideas might not come to fruition. So in pursuit of our mission, we're guided by a few principles. We have focus on diversity, impartiality, integrity, humility, personal growth, and of course, global collaboration and inclusion. Since its inception, the Georgetown Hub has brought together a diverse group of young professionals. We include entrepreneurs, academics, activists, and corporate leaders, all dedicated to making a positive impact in their community. With that being said, we are a bit different from other nonprofits. As I said, you'd have to be a young leader in your own right. It makes it hard for all of us to meet, but it makes a big impact. The Hub has spearheaded various initiatives focused on education, environmental sustainability, public health, and social equity. Currently, one of our flagship projects is known as Project Head Start. The project was initiated in 2013 and has since become an annual signature project for the Global Shapers. The project initially started as just a stationary drive, focused on supplying basic school supplies to hinterland schools. Due to the consistent intervention into these communities and effective communication, the Hub was able to forge strong relations with key pillars of these vulnerable communities. As such, the Hub has been better able to understand the needs of the communities. Head Start has since expanded vastly and evolved from a simple stationary drive to providing training, empowerment sessions, essential literacy tools, and necessary equipment towards the development of the students in hinterland communities. In addition to this, we have a plethora of other projects, one of them being crosswalk painting, tree planting exercises, financial literacy workshops, and our annual blood drive. With all of this being said, how does it exactly integrate into the corporate world? I can sit here and I can spew how much being a part of a nonprofit and an NGO is great, but business is business. How can I help businesses? How can we have more focus on people while still improving social impact in the corporate world? One of the first points I'd like to bring out is that we Yes, we leverage corporate resources for community projects because corporate resources is what we need. As I said before, I function and I have my big girl corporate job, but I still go for my social responsibilities. Corporates possess significant resources, including funding, expertise, and networks, which can be utilized to support community projects initiated by us, the global shapers. But one thing that we like to do when leveraging these corporate resources is giving you a bang for your buck, essentially. So what we've recently implemented is that in asking for sponsorship and in asking for aid, we are offering to our businesses different team and capacity building exercises, free of charge, of course. You give us something, we give you something. So, as previously mentioned, crosswalk painting, tree planting exercises, financial literacy workshops, all of these activities, the businesses would have full access to those for their employees. And with that, yes, they're getting to do team and capacity building, but they're also fulfilling their corporate social responsibility at the same time. That actually leads right, it coincides with my second point, employee engagement and volunteerism, encouraging employees to participate in volunteer activities and project organized by the hub. It can boost morale, enhance team cohesion, and provide personal development opportunities. I know Ian mentioned promoting sustainable business practices. I have that on my points as well. As part of the Global Shapers community, corporate leaders can champion sustainable business practices within their organizations. This includes implementing environmentally friendly policies, advocating for ethical supply chain, and promoting diversity and inclusion in the workplace. These efforts can not only improve corporate reputation, but also contribute to the broader societal goals aligned with our mission. And it gives businesses a aid. Maybe they might not, be as knowledgeable or need guidance on it. And we stand here as guidance and a pillar to aid in whatever way we can. Fostering innovation through collaboration. Engagement with the Global Shapers community provides corporates with a unique opportunity to collaborate with young, innovative thinkers who bring fresh perspectives to resolving societal challenges. This partnership can drive innovative solutions that benefit both the community and the business. By supporting the Shaper-led initiative, corporations can stay ahead of social trends and emerging issues, ensuring their strategies are both socially responsible and forward-thinking. I know 2 questions were posited to me by Kamala last night. Is our work supported by the government of Guyana? And do we see the program fill in the gaps that should be covered by the government? I must say we are a nonprofit, not for profit, but we are shaped by local context and under the pillars of the World Economic Forum, where there exists overlap in certain areas like low carbon development strategies and under the Ministry of Education, especially with our project Head Start, there is areas for collaboration. I wouldn't say it is our goal to fill the gaps left by the government, but we have collaborated with the government before, and the hub does our own market research for projects. We're just pretty much a group of young leaders trying to make an impact in whatever way that we can. And I'm pretty much answering the first question last. What inspired me as a young person to make the impact in people's lives better? It's that I was afforded a lot of opportunities growing up, and I'd like to give persons that same level. And I know it might be unrealistic and it might be naive, but if we continue to try, myself and my team, we can. And we've worked so hard to create a safe space within our Georgetown hub that we have gotten so much done in such a short period of time that I do see that it is possible. I think that would be the end of my presentation. I like to keep things short and sweet. But if you guys have any questions, you can reach out to me, or I can drop a link with a bit of information on Georgetown Hub. and how you can be beneficial. I know for a fact as well, there is a POS hub in Trinidad that is doing absolutely amazing work. Thank you very much.
Sadiya. We're gonna have an opportunity certainly to engage you further during the Q&A. I'd just like to move on now to Janice. And Janice, I'll invite you to take the floor and share your perspective on the topic, focus on people improving the social impact.
Thank you. And good afternoon to all the participants, and thank you to CCGI for this opportunity to present here today. I'm going to start off by giving a little story. Today is my birthday, and I'm over 60. So in chatting with a friend of mine about this topic, because he has worked in the public service sector for years, and we were talking about, you know, the different generations, and he went, "But Jan, don't you realize that you are part of the old generation now?" And that kind of hit me for six, because I don't ever think of myself as being part of a generation. And looking, you know, people will say to me, "Oh, but you look so good for your age," and so on. But then I got curious and I decided that I was just going to do a quick search on generations. So you have the baby boomers, which is from 1946 to 1964. So I fall within the baby boomers period. Then you have the Generation X, which is 1965 to 1980. The millennials, 1981 to 1996. Generation X, 1997 to 2012. And you now have the Generation Alpha, which is 2013 to 2025. So let's take a look at people, because without people, you can't have a social impact, you can't have a successful organization, you know, and you won't have people to provide the different services that we currently need in the public sector. Now, when we look at the millennials, for instance, we are looking at the computer age. And I also think about the days of black and white TV, because that's the age I grew up in. And I also grew up in the age of where the village concept took place with respect to the children growing up. So, you know, you can't leave your parents' house, walk down the road and do something, and the neighbor will not correct you in your action. You know that, right? Plus discipline played a very big role in terms of keeping children in line, if I can put it that way. So with respect to the Generation X now, they haven't grown in that period, because when they were born, you had to have both parents working 2 jobs to be able to live a comfortable life. You also had parents who were trying to give their children what they did not have growing up. So that's going to affect how they grow in terms of being making an impact on social issues. So in a couple of my training sessions, I am dealing now with a lot of these Generation X adults. And they said to me, you know, they will come to my class and they will talk about, you know, how in terms of effective communication and presentation skills and time management. When we look at these particular topics, whether it's private sector or the public sector, we realize that there is a gap somewhere in the training, which is critical for these adults. So now they're having to come to me to help them. Some will say to me, some executives will say to me, well, you know, when they do their degree or their MBA, there's a section in there that talks about leadership and, you know, teamwork and so on. Yes, but a lot of the people who are serving the public today in the public sector, they don't have that training. They don't. So we have to understand that whether it's public or private, there needs to be that level of training that companies or companies will give to their employees. When a company is looking for staff members, they will say, well, we're looking for somebody who can do this, do that, do that. But when they get that resume from a potential employee, how are they going to know whether that person truly have those skills? They don't. So they have to go through the 6-month period, spend money, you know, before they realize, well, look, this person is not a good fit for the company, right? Therefore, they have to let the person go. So it is up to individuals now to recognize that because they are contributing or they will be having to contribute to the social impact, they need to invest in themselves. Don't just wait for the employer to spend the money. They need to invest. They need to make sure that they have the skills required to provide a good service to the public out there. Because we all complain about our public sector and the fact that we don't get good service and, you know, but how can that be changed? In talking to my friend, he made mention of a couple of things, and I just want to share that with you in terms of the training. Because he says that in the a couple years ago, they had a school that trained the immigration officers, for instance. And he says, it just died. And then he called another, there was the one for Customs and Exile. And then it died because that one used to train officers throughout the region. And I said, but my dear, don't you realize the reason it died is because there was no succession planning. All the older generation lecturers were no longer available and nobody was replacing them. So they had, because of that, the school no longer exists. So everybody's working in their organizations, especially in the public sector, on practice, because there seems to be an issue in terms of having policies that are written. So everything is now practice. And I've experienced that as well because I was supervisory chair of my credit union, and I would go to board meetings. And when they would do something, and I go, but that's not right. Why are you doing that? They go, well, that's the practice. We've been doing it for a long time. And I go, but just because it's practice does not mean to say it is right. So the thing about it is that there seems to be a lack of policy in place. And it's all about, well, it was done like this before, so we're continuing what is happening. In training the people of my generation, one of the first things we have to do is to build trust. Now, you have this situation where people would have started working at a job and they would think to themselves, well, you know what? I'm going to sit down here until I'm 60 because I'm comfortable. So you find that in terms of they learning new things and extending themselves in upgrading their skills, you now have to train them in being able to get them to work more efficient. So you got to build a trust in terms of getting them to attend training sessions put on by the organization. The second thing is relevance to their jobs. Now, when I do training, the first question I ask is, why are you here? What are you expecting to get out of this training? And they would tell me, well, I'm having problems with, how I get my jobs, my activities done. And I'm here because I think there's a better way of doing things. So I said, well, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to look at what you do. We are actually going to have a session where you will present and you will get feedback from your colleagues. So relevance of what they do comes into play. And at the end of these training sessions, they go away feeling that sense of achievement because they now feel that they have gotten the skills necessary in order to go back to their desk and do their jobs more efficiently. I even say to them, I said, listen, instead of waiting for a whole year to pass in order to make a list of things for your evaluation, right? Evaluate your performance every quarter. So at least you have a couple months to change how you do things, connect with your supervisor to make sure you're doing what they want before your final evaluation. I said, you're going to come out smelling like a rose. It's all part of the training. The other thing too is with dealing with the young generation. Now, my son, he is a Generation X. And I tell you, something must have happened in the universe because the way he grew up, the way he behaves, the way he talks is so different to the millennials. We cannot identify to some extent. And you know why? Because he has been born into the age of computers, of the digital age, which we didn't have in our time. So his way of thinking is very different. And the question is, how do you treat with that? How do you get them to go out there, they're in the world of work, to connect with the millennium thinkers and to understand that, okay, yes, I may have a degree or I may have a certain certificates. How can I connect with my supervisor who has years of experience and how I can learn from that individual? Again, to deal with the social impact. So, as a mother, I try my best. And I'm hoping that I get through because I keep saying to myself, listen, I am not going to be here forever. One day you're going to be on your own, right? So take what I am teaching you. Now, I know the recorder is going on in his brain when I say these things to him, because it happened to me when my mother used to say those very same things to us. And I will never forget when I went to live in England to go to school, and I used to be going through my issues, I would suddenly hear her voice in my head saying the very same things that I used to shut out when I was in Trinidad. And that is what helped me a great deal, right? So dealing with, well, both generations, one has to have patience. You have to listen. You have to encourage them. I tell people straight, I say, I talk constantly. I never stop talking. Always very encouraging to my son, because I don't want him to turn off. Now, he is a gamer. A lot of the Generation Z kids are gamers. They spend hours playing games. They are talking to foreign adults of their own age, playing these games. They're making friends. They're learning from each other. So he is getting us an international flavor from these other gamers because they share information. So we have to keep encouraging and listening to them and trying to show them, look, I understand your point of view. No harm in that. But hear what? How about looking at it from this particular point of view based on the experience of the older generation? Because we have value still to share. Because just now, we are on the retirement line, and they are going to be the ones leading the country. And we have to hope and pray that they lead it in the right direction, right? So we have to be mindful of those things. Plus mentorship. How many companies, private, or even in the public service, how many of them have what the mentorship program, where they take the young people and they put them under somebody senior who has the years of experience to guide them through? I did a stint at BPTT for about a year, and I was quite impressed because the older managers were assigned a young employee now coming into the organization. And he mentored that employee because, you know, the employee did not have the experience. He may have the book knowledge, but he did not have the physical knowledge that the older manager would have had. So that mentoring is critical in all organizations. The last thing I want to talk about is we all have the situation of crime. And luckily for me, the inspector responsible for the community has started what is called a station council, whereby a member of each of the areas that he is responsible for come together once a month to talk about the crime issues, what can be done. But most importantly, we are looking at working in the community. So we have decided to get involved with St. Jude, which is a home for girls, and providing them with different personal items, talking to them about what it is they want to do with themselves, what sort of career they would like to follow, giving back, because if we don't do that, we are going to be in trouble. We got to go out there and help the people in the community who are not as fortunate as us, so that we can inspire, encourage, and hopefully, because again, they are going to be the ones running the country, the ones who are going to be in the public service sector, doing whether it's a clerk job. So we have to pay attention to those things. So I think that in conclusion, yes, we as an older generation have to embrace this new generation that is coming up. We got to give them hope. We got to give them empowerment, because a lot of them are saying they feel hopeless. And that is the only way that we are going to be able to improve and maintain a proper social impact throughout Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Janice. You had me very, very engaged. And I really want to thank all the members of the panelists for the kind of unique and stimulating, thought-provoking perspectives that you shared. Ian, I'd like to pose two questions to you. you shared in detail the initiatives being implemented by Angostura, and I wanted to ask, you know, corporate social responsibility isn't a new concept. It has been around for a very long time. But I think over time, there became a level of cynicism at the community level and even some stakeholders in feeling that this is not necessarily for the social good, but rather for the branding or just to maintain a corporate brand for the company. And I wanted to ask, how did you get buy-in from the stakeholders, particularly the employees, those at the community level, with for whom or towards whom these initiatives were geared? And the next question I would like to ask and pose to you is, what government incentives you believe can be meaningful in helping to create the bigger social impact that we definitely need in our societies?
Right. Okay. So let me see how I'll put this. So I have to first tell you a little bit about Angostura. So for those of our colleagues who are not from Trinidad and Tobago, and those in the wider Caribbean, I say that Angostura is the producer of a globally recognized product, Angostura Bitters, but the company is proudly domiciled in Mova Laventil. So you don't know what Mova Laventil is, but Mova Laventil is a suburb of Port of Spain, which is economically depressed. And in fact, it's Mova Laventil Beatum. And we are smack in the middle of 3 depressed communities that have a number of issues that would mirror any social challenge that you expect of a community on the edge of an urban center. Poverty, lack of opportunities, lack of education, crime, everything. So that the first thing is that it's not a question of our image. This is not about our image. This is what we have to do. The fence line community is important to us. So we do that because we employ people from the fence line community. We support the fence line community for the greater good of Trinidad and Tobago from primary school go on. We do programs with youths in the fence line community. We do programs with community groups in the fence line community, and we do all of that, not from the perspective of wanting to have a fantastic corporate social image, but because we view it as our responsibility. In fact, sometimes we have to remind ourselves that, listen, Angostura produces products for the entire Trinidad and Tobago. So you have to remember to do things up in Blanchisseuse or in Toko or Matlot in the far-flung edges of the country as well. Or don't forget Tobago. So we view ourselves as a proud Trinidad and Tobago brand doing things for Trinidad and Tobago. We ain't doing things because we're interested in corporate social responsibility to say, oh, you're doing so well from a corp. No, it's not about that. We feel a measure of responsibility. In terms of government and policies, I mentioned in my presentation that Russell Latapy High School, where we helped with another corporate foundation to build a steel band manufacturing facility, right? Because we teach steel band manufacturing at this high school. At that official opening ceremony, the Minister of Education called out Angostura, among others, because we subscribe to what is called an Adopt a School program. And she spoke about a bigger aspect of meaningful engagement whereby corporate entities assist it somewhat in the delivery of services. You know why? Because the government can never do it all. So when you say, what could governments do? Okay, governments could perhaps incentivize some corporate entities to do more. Some will do it because they feel the responsibility. And some may need to be incentivized to realize, well, listen, don't forget that because you live in a community, you could help with this, help with that, with the school near to where your business is running, if you're running a successful business, because this is a community that perhaps is helping you to be successful. Every successful business in some small way gives back to the community that supports it. It could be from the corner shop, go back. So for me, if what government incentives are required is perhaps to encourage, gently encourage by way of policy, organizations to do more in this regard. Finally, bringing it back to the whole climate thing, in our country, there are some benefits to investing in technologies in and around solar or wind. And it's good that they are there. So government policy could drive things in a particular direction. So we're looking at social impact, we're looking at climate change, we're looking at it all. Government policies can help to drive things in a particular direction, whether it is delivering social services, whether it is supporting their own delivery of services like education and or job creation and or skills development and or training. And it can also drive moving to renewable energies. Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you very much. I think you've certainly reinforced for us that Angostura is an example of what we call the conscious business. A business that is putting people at the center, understanding that your capital is not driven or determined only by your investors or your shareholders, but certainly by the people and the community that you serve. So thank you so much. For Sadiya, I'd just like to ask, and again, pose two questions. And one, as I listened, you are not for profit, which is you know, on the other side of the spectrum. And I wanted to find out, how do you manage or think about the sustainability of your organization in light of the fact that you may be depending on funding agencies or other forms of support, but there are, let's say, for example, contractions in what we call the corporate sponsorship budget, or even the availability of other funders. How do you guarantee or support that sustainability for the organization, particularly in the context of what we're talking about, that in our current climate, we really do need organizations like yours that are making a difference in terms of its social impact. And the final question is, if you could share with us some examples of some collaboration on projects that you have done in Guyana in terms of, you know, being able to galvanize government support for those initiatives.
Okay, so with regards to the first question, being a not-for-profit is very hard, and we are definitely feeling that squeeze right now, because one of our projects that we are working on that I did mention is Project Head Start, which is to get hinterland kids access to school supplies. And we have an upcoming fundraiser, and you guys would know as well how hard it is to get sponsorships. So something that we do is we know for a fact that businesses set their calendar and their budget for a certain amount of money for a particular time. So because we are spread so wide, I must say we have our networks that we can gauge that, and we know when exactly to reach out to which businesses to, you know, make that first jump to get access to funding. So that is one, but just building on us being spread so wide, the Global Shapers in Guyana, the Georgetown Hub in particular, a lot of our alumni are, I would say, big names in Guyana's business, in the business sphere. So we know even if there's a point in time that we might not get access to sponsorship, we can always rely on them to help us in some way. And they might not be able to help us off the bat, but they always, in any, I feel like it's a Caribbean culture thing. Even if they can't help us, they know someone or someone of someone that can help us in some way. So we try to be in tune as possible with businesses and their corporate responsibilities and their budget that they give out. Mostly as is, we rely heavily on our alumni chapter of Global Shapers.
Thank you very much.
And
Sadiya,
your second question with regards to the government, it would be before my time, there was a mental health initiative by the Global Shapers that they collaborated directly with, I believe, the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Education in Guyana. As is, we're not currently collaborating with them, but there is room for collaboration, especially with Head Start, because we recently received donations of some solar panels for schools from actually a huge corporate entity here that we're trying to get delivered into the hinterland regions.
thank you, Sadiya. We have questions in the chat, but Janice, I'd like to engage you on you presented a very interesting perspectives in terms of you mentioned the older generation, the younger generation needing to listen to the older generation. But I'm gonna flip that for you. Last year, the Barbados Chamber was introduced to this novel concept called reverse mentoring, and we actually had a leadership training in collaboration with the Kville School of Business on that, because this innovative concept calls for leaders to change their leadership or modalities and begin to move, consider the fact that if they need to advance organizations and in terms of succession planning, they also need to bridge that gap where leaders are not the only ones in an organization that are speaking. And mentorship doesn't have to be the older mentoring the younger. The concept has been employed and utilized by Virgin, for example, where they take junior staff within a workplace. And I feel that such a concept is very critical. Why? Because it bridges that gap, but it also helps our institutional leaders or those who are older to learn concepts, because this generation has a lot to teach us. And if we're going to transform organization to become the kind of organizations that with the governance models are even making the kind of social impact that they're supposed to make, this is the generation to listen to. These are the future leaders. And so I wanted to hear from you as someone who does coaching. Is this a concept that you're aware of? It promotes diversity in the workplace, but it also gives space to the younger people in an organization to feel comfortable that the environment in an organization allows for their voices to be heard. So I just wanted to hear your thoughts.
Right. Now, do not get me wrong. The young people today are coming with some concepts that are mind-blowing. And it is up to the older generation to open their minds, to be able to accept what the young people are coming with. Now, the concepts are interesting, but we have to marry that with the experience from the older heads, because there are certain, in certain industries, you need the experience more so than the concepts, especially when you're working like in the energy sector, for instance, with all those big machines and so on. But it is a good idea for leaders to pay attention. Now, again, some companies, they have their suggestion box. You have managers who are very into the whole thing of holding employees accountable for their actions. They will listen to them and say, well, okay, if this is your idea, run with it. But hear what? You will be held accountable. All right, so let us see if what you want how it is you want to manage this project, for instance. I'll give you leeway. Go ahead, show me what you got. right? So the thing is that it is difficult for my generation. I can only speak for myself. For my generation, because we have come so far from the days of black and white TV. I remember when my parents had a car and we used to have to take this long wrench to wind up the front of the car for it to start on the morning. I remember those days. Right. I remember listening, the radio was the only form of entertainment at that time, and the drive-in cinema. So I have come from an era where things have now progressed so fast that we are now in the artificial intelligence age. Whoever thought we would ever get to that point? And the young generation now are the ones who are harnessing the AI intelligence out there. And it's not just, I mean, and it's so vast because I belong to this Twitter group, and the kinds of AI programs and software that keep coming at me every day, I'm going, oh my gosh, come on, I need a break, because it's just so much out there. And we have to be cognizant enough to say, you know what, is either we go with it or we get left behind.
Indeed. Indeed. Thank you very much, Janice. We have only 15 minutes left for this segment. And so I'd like to just open the floor and for questions from participants, and invite persons to raise their hands if they want to, if they'd like to share a thought or a question. And I see that Novak has been sharing his thoughts, as well as Oswald. And I'd like to just invite you, if you wish, to just open your mics and, you know, just let us hear your thoughts or questions.
Novak here, thanks for the opportunity to share. So my post really was sort of in response tangentially to Ian and their efforts at Angostura, which I mean is really commendable. But
Yes.
Yesterday, I had a very similar thought as we were going through, you know, the sustainability and the efforts organizations can take to sort of contribute towards the sustainability of the environment. And especially as it pertains to the bottom line. And yesterday, the discussion was more along the lines of, you know, whether there's this sort of struggle between sustainability and profits and whether they compete with each other. But my thought today is that what about the indirect impacts of the policies that you make on sustainability? So the example I had in mind is, say at a national level, the government decides, okay, we're now going to build in the vendor carbon offset into our vendor selection process. So let's just say that impacts vehicles that the government is purchasing. Would the vendors themselves now be forced to be competitive in that space of taking proactive actions to reduce their carbon offset? Because a large segment of the Caribbean has decided, okay, now we are taking this position and we now need to react to their policies. Now, again, I don't have hard data to support it. It's just a sort of back of the napkin thought as I listen to the presenters. But I mean, I just decided to throw the idea out there just to hear what you all think about it.
Thank you, Novak. I'm not sure if Ian or anyone wanted to just comment.
Perhaps I could put it this way. One of the big things, one of the big pushes for us, especially with regards to our ISO 9000 certification, is the whole issue of your supply chain, and we are encouraged to find suppliers that subscribe to sustainable practices or sustainable aspects to what they do or produce, so that so that it is possible, I believe, to weave that into your supply chain or weave policies that support a proactive stance with regards to your choice of suppliers. So definitely that is something that one can do. In terms of sourcing, for instance, let me just give a simple example. So one of our policies is that any little thing we could do towards towards advancing that sustainability agenda, we do. So for instance, we went out to lease vehicles, motor vehicles from various suppliers, and we specifically source hybrid vehicles. Our CEO drives an electric vehicle. So that so in your supply chain, your policies and your position and your stance can advance a particular agenda. And that's one example of what we did it. So in much the same way as we did that, if you wanted to deal with companies, or you wanted to proactively associate with companies that were in this carbon sourcing perspective that Novak mentioned, by all means, by setting a policy or putting it into your RFP, you can drive the organization in that direction.
Indeed. Oswald, I just, again, being conscious of time, I just wanted to give an opportunity for one other person to weigh in or to raise a question or give his feedback. And he had a question in the chat. So I'd like to give Oswald and Chisholm an opportunity. I'm not sure if Oswald, we have lost him, Kamla, but I would then raise the question. And I think he was posing it during Janice's presentation, and he was asking, what are the generation builders, and what are the generation gap of the builders that the baby boomers born out of the season? And he noted that it's a very interactive and interesting, because he also has a 6-year-old who plays games and communicate with his age group in that manner. I do have children that are glued to the phone, and I think you have to pry it out of their hands before bed at nights. But as they get up in the morning, it is back, you know. So Janice, I don't know if you want us to comment on the point he made or the question he asked.
And Janice, just as you finish, I'm going to ask Misha, because then we'd be heading into the last 10 minutes for her to then go to each of you for wrap-up comments, okay?
Thank you, Kamla, will do.
Let me see if I follow correctly what is he's asking me. It's basically, what is the gap between the generations?
Yes.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the gaps have to do with technology. What would have been there for the millennials, and then what came after that, and what is going forward. We are all moving into a digital age and artificial intelligence age. And we need to keep abreast of the technology and what is happening out there, because we are going to be affected. Now, when it comes to dealing with, let's say, the gaps between our children, what I discovered with my son is that when I wanted him to do something, and he did not do it, I had a metal cabinet, and I would take all his gadgets and lock it in that cabinet and say, when you do what I ask you to do, no problem, you get back your gadgets. So while waiting to get back his gadgets, because I said, you're not getting it back right away, you know, I'll give you 2 days to relax yourself. And I would get so much love and oh, mom, and hugs. I even, one night, I even felt his hand feeling under my pillow for the key. You know, so it helps when you as a parent can understand what is happening in your child's generation and be able to interact with the child, so that you will always have that synergy, you know, and you'll be the best loved parent. You know, and when you pass on, they will say, boy, my mom was the best. She understood me, right? So, you know, these are the things that we have to do. And the days for pulling a belt or slapping or shouting and screaming, because nowadays there's no point shouting and screaming at them because they're not going to hear you. So you have to come down to their level. You got to lower the voice. You have to negotiate, right? And speak to them as though they are a little adult. Because remember, when they go to school with their parents, they all interact. And they know exactly how they're going to be treating with mommy and daddy when they get home. So we as parents now have to make sure that we keep on top of what is happening out there, so that when anything happens, we have the knowledge, we can advise them, we can, assist where necessary. So that's basically the simple answer.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Janice. So we're going to wrap up this panel discussion within the context of Governance Week, looking at regenerative capitalism, promoting exceptional governance in governance for small states. Our panel and our session was focus on people, improving the social impact. I'd like to just ask each of our panelists to give their wrap-up comment. Sadiya, I'd like to start with you first.
I'll just reiterate what I said earlier, to be soft on people and hard on ideas. It really goes a far way. And especially in the corporate world, it can be a bit difficult to, make those decisions when it comes to corporate responsibility, because a lot of times people tend to think about money and not the impact that it has. So again, continue to be soft on people and very hard in your ideas that you want.
Thank you very much, Sadiya. Ian?
Hey, Misha, I will give my wrap up, but there is one thing I want to do with regards to the question that you had asked Janice about, which focused on what can the young do in terms of in organizations. And sometimes from my perspective, the young can do a lot because they are far more technology savvy.
I agree.
We work in an SAP environment, for instance, and young people catch on to SAP in no time, but you may have older employees or less computer literate employees, and they may have the patience to teach them. I will give you one vision of this, all right, in my life. My 89-year-old mother is waiting excitedly for me to get her a tablet because she lived in the push button world. And to this day, she cannot swipe anything to bring it alive. She cannot swipe a smartphone. She can't swipe anything. So there is my niece, her granddaughter, teaching her to swipe. And she's so excited that she can now swipe and bring a device alive that she can't wait to get her tablet to start practicing. You know what? Young people have so much to contribute. They have the patience, but they are masters of technologies. What Janice said, the difference between our generation and the current generation is technology. I apply that to myself. I get frustrated with passwords. I get frustrated with 100 passwords for different things. I get impatient. I feel it myself, yet I'm supposed to be part of this digital age. I myself am wary. And now to deal with artificial intelligence, I feel like I'm already sidelined. So so young people can help older people to calm down where those things are concerned. So to summarize, there's a lot that organizations can do in terms of social impact. You don't have to be an Angostura. You could be a small organization. It depends on what your policy and perspective is. What is the ethos of your organization? Small companies can help their community. Small companies can do cleanup campaigns, coastal cleanup campaigns. You don't have to have a big budget. It's not about the corporate social responsibility. It's about how you engage your people internally and how you encourage them to interact with the community externally. Any business could do that. You don't need to be Angostura to do that. And then let's take it to sustainability, because this is about climate and so on. Any business can put in a LED bulb. Any business could put in a solar water heater. Any business could put in solar street lamps around their business. Every little thing we do will make a difference. That's my wrap up. Thank you.
Yeah, well said. Well said. Janice? Yeah, we have about a minute.
A minute.
Yeah.
Well, my words will be train, 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 train your staff. Usually when budget time comes around for any organization, the one thing that gets cut is training. And that's unfortunate. I remember, and this is just a little plug here for Angostura. Angostura was a client of mine in the days when Microsoft Office programs were now coming in to being, right? And I love the fact that you were taking the time and effort to get all your staff trained because they didn't know. They just did not know. So training needs to be up there with all the other important projects that you all need to get done.
Yeah.
Thank
I
you.
really want to thank CCGI for the opportunity given to me to moderate this panel. I want to thank you all for the perspectives shared in terms of helping to broaden the discourse that CCGI has facilitated through Governance Week. I will end by saying whether it is that we're talking about regenerative capitalism or the conscious capitalist or the sustainability agenda, all of it calls organizations to put people at the center of their strategies, people at the center of their decision-making process, because the future depends on the decisions we make now for the future of our people and our planet. Kamla, thank you very much for the opportunity, and it really was a pleasure engaging with you, Ian, Sadiya, and Janice.